Thank you very much, Presiding Officer. Like others, I want to welcome this report, and I do so as a non-member of the committee. And I particularly want to welcome the emphasis that Ian Smith made in his opening remarks about energy efficiency as a key part of the future strategy, and the need to do that in order to reduce consumption. However, having said that, Presiding Officer, I want to focus my own remarks on generation and on renewables in particular, and the vital need we've got for exploiting more from the renewables potential that we do have. I also want to emphasise that that provides very particular opportunities for my region, the Highlands and Islands, which of course is blessed with an abundance of land, of wind, of coastline, therefore with lots of tidal movement, and indeed on our west coast in particular with lots of rain. And therefore the Highlands and Islands is well placed to make a very big contribution, in fact the biggest contribution in the UK to the renewables scene in total. And it is important for the Highlands and Islands to play its part, its full part in contributing to the national needs, as it's done before with hydro schemes in the 1950s and oil production support in the 1970s. And there's an opportunity for the Highlands and Islands to make a positive contribution to the nation as a whole, because very often the Highlands and Islands is characterised as an area that is a beneficiary of national goods, and here's a chance for them to be a contributor to the nation's needs. And that's not always possible in the wider economy of the Highlands and Islands. And it's an opportunity that we must take with considerable courage and a great deal of commitment. And we need to see, as Wendy Alexander indicated when she talked about the Copenhagen and the days leading up to Copenhagen, we need to see the big picture and the need to contribute as a nation to Europe and the world's need to reduce carbon emissions, but also to do so within our own boundaries, and not just to see in all circumstances the local picture and the local arguments about particular applications. And we need to make much more of a reality of some of the rhetoric that we hear from government about renewables. Now, the opportunities are clear. There are many challenges, many of them technical. Some people have touched on them already with things like the grid connections that people and the cables that people have talked about. There are also wider challenges, because the very environment which gives the Highlands and Islands the opportunities that it has to contribute is also the very environment that people want to protect. And that's why controversy is so common around particular proposals, whether that's pylons, onshore wind, whether it's about habitat protection, species protection, whether it's about peatlands or scenic considerations. And from a mountaineer's point of view, or that of someone who admires wild land and wants to preserve that, or even those who just simply want to maintain the scenic quality that we have in Scotland, it's nice to think of nothing further intervening in our landscape. And this generates very strong emotions in people. But of course, there's very little in the Highlands and Islands, if you look at it, that where humankind has not already intervened in the landscape, whether from deforestation or the management of grouse moors, the hydro dams that have already been created, the pylons that already exist, the cables that already exist, the hill tracks, the roads, all have intervened in our environment. It's very important in this whole debate about renewables that we need to find a balance in these different and competing interests that our society has. But that's a balance within which far more renewable opportunities must be realised if we are to make our contribution to world issues, and if we're to meet our own targets on the climate and generate the economic opportunities that, again, the committee has pointed to. Now, wind farms are clearly the most controversial thing that affect my area in this sphere of activity. But clearly they've also got a far bigger part to play than they've been allowed to play so far. And siting of wind farms, obviously, in that debate is crucial. And it's properly the case that it is local democratic councillors or ministers democratically elected who make the final decisions. Now, not everywhere is suitable for wind farms, and we need to acknowledge that. But there must be many, many suitable places somewhere in my area for more potential to be exploited. And there's a disappointing predictability about how the battle lines form over specific applications. And there must be merit, far more merit than we've seen today, and far more potential than we've seen today, to try and make sure that our pre-application, pre-planning application processes are more thorough and give the opportunity for more resolution of disagreement and concern before the formal stage. And I'm glad to see that the committee and the Minister in his response have acknowledged that. Now, we've seen some of this in Lewis, where there was a very big proposal turned down by the government. And to my mind, that's a lost economic opportunity, not only for the local community, but for the nation as a whole. It's also the lost carbon-saving opportunity. We can't keep turning down big schemes if we're to meet our targets and win the economic opportunities that we know exist. And currently there's debate raging in Shetland over the Viking energy proposals. Huge potential from that particular proposal of national significance, helping not just Shetland become more carbon neutral, but helping Scotland and indeed the whole of the nation become more carbon neutral, and providing, in Shetland terms, long-term revenue stream to the islands, as oil revenues have done in the past, but are in danger of progressively diminishing over time. Now, Shetland has taken advantage of oil to transform its economy, and Viking Energy is the next big chance for Shetland. A joint venture, very astutely negotiated, as you'd expect from Shetlanders, with a major electricity company. I see the Orcadian member is disagreeing marginally with that proposition, but there you go. That is always the case between Orkney and Shetland. Nonetheless, a very astutely negotiated opportunity for Shetland to share in the profits of what could be a very, very major development. Now, it's a good thing that there is local debate. It airs concerns, it allows people to ask important questions. And having legitimate questions and concerns, however, does not mean that you always have to oppose the principle of a development. But equally, supporting the principle of that development does not mean there's no need for the proposers of that to come to compromises, to seek to find accommodations with objectors to address concerns that people legitimately have. Now, in my mind, Presiding Officer, Shetland have an enormous opportunity that I hope they can take. And if they don't do that in partnership, as is the current proposal with Viking Energy, then I would not be at all surprised. In fact, I would predict absolutely that those proposals will turn into purely private proposals where the community may not have the same opportunity to access long-term revenue streams. And I hope the community can find a way forward there to help themselves, to help us as a nation, to meet our targets, being bold as they were in the 1970s, grasping that opportunity and seeking to meet as many of the legitimate concerns as are possible. But ultimately, it may well fall to the Minister to make those difficult decisions, and I hope that he does so in the spirit in which Wendy Alexander talked about the importance of the big picture here and our need on the way to Copenhagen to make a big contribution to the world's problems.